What happens when a beloved comedy legend walks onto what should be a routine daytime talk show, only to find himself face-to-face with the most hostile interviewer on television? What you're about to witness is the exact moment Joy Behar's trademark arrogance finally met its match. The explosive confrontation that followed didn't just shock the audience, it ended with Joy Behar storming off her own show. But the build-up to that moment is far more intense than anyone expected. The View studio buzzed with its usual pre-show energy as Adam Sandler settled into the guest chair, his familiar, easygoing smile instantly warming the room. The audience erupted in genuine applause, clearly thrilled to see the comedy icon. But the mood shifted the moment the cameras rolled and the red recording light blinked on. Joy Behar's expression hardened, and with a sharp edge in her voice, she wasted no time setting a confrontational tone. "So Adam," Joy began, barely masking her disdain, "another juvenile comedy. At your age, don't you think it's time to grow up and make something with actual substance?" Adam's smile faltered for just a second, but he kept his composure. Calmly, he explained that his movies were meant to make people laugh, especially during difficult times, and that bringing joy to families still mattered. Joy immediately mocked him, repeating the word joy sarcastically before launching her next attack. She dismissed his work as fart jokes and silly voices, questioning when he last made a film that said anything meaningful about the real world. The other hosts shifted uncomfortably as Whoopi Goldberg attempted to ease the tension, but Joy bulldozed right over her. She accused Adam of ignoring serious issues like climate change, political division, and social justice while profiting from what she called lowest common denominator entertainment. Adam took a measured breath, his laid-back demeanor beginning to crack. He pushed back respectfully, saying comedy shouldn't be underestimated. Making a stressed parent laugh or giving a family an hour of escape, he argued, was meaningful in its own way. Joy scoffed openly, rolling her eyes on camera and accusing him of producing mindless content that dumbed down society and distracted children from real issues. The tension in the studio became impossible to ignore. Crew members stood frozen behind the cameras as Joy pressed on, shifting her attack toward gender representation. She accused Adam's films of reducing women to stereotypes and demanded to know how he justified it in an era fighting for equality. Adam's jaw tightened, but he responded firmly, defending his collaborations with talented female comedians and citing multiple films where women were portrayed as intelligent, independent, and equal partners. Joy wasn't satisfied. Leaning forward aggressively, she fired back. "Name one." Adam calmly listed examples, but Joy waved them away dismissively, calling them supporting roles at best. By this point, the confrontation had gone far beyond a movie discussion. It had turned into a personal takedown, setting the stage for the moment that would soon push Joy Behar over the edge. Joy sneered, accusing Adam of hiding behind token characters to make his films appear less sexist than they truly were. She told him bluntly that he was part of the problem, that with his money, influence, and power, he chose to make movies about golf, football, and grown men who refused to mature. The audience began to murmur, the discomfort spreading visibly through the studio as Joy's tone grew sharper and more aggressive with every sentence. Adam briefly glanced toward the other hosts, perhaps hoping someone would step in, but they remained frozen, clearly overwhelmed by the intensity of Joy's attack. Choosing his words carefully, Adam responded that entertainment and activism didn't have to cancel each other out. His job, he said, was to entertain people, and he took that responsibility seriously. Making people laugh didn't mean he was indifferent to serious issues, nor did it mean he was damaging society. Joy cut him off instantly. She argued that his job was whatever he chose it to be, and that he had chosen to participate in a system that distracted people from real problems while making himself rich. She called it exploitation, not entertainment. The word hung heavily in the air, And for the first time since the interview began, Adam Sandler's famous smile vanished completely. Something shifted in his expression, an unmistakable sign that Joy had finally crossed a line. "You know what, Joy?" Adam said quietly, his voice carrying a weight that pulled the entire studio into silence. "I think we need to talk about exploitation." The room went still. Joy's confident smirk faltered as she sensed the balance of power changing. Adam continued calmly but firmly, suggesting that if they were going to talk about responsible use of a platform, then Joy's own record deserved scrutiny. He pointed out that Joy sat on national television every day, claiming to speak for women and marginalized communities, yet seemed more interested in tearing people down than lifting anyone up. Joy bristled, snapping back that she had fought for progressive causes longer than Adam had been making movies. She dismissed him as someone who relied on cheap laughs and cross-dressing gags for comedy. Adam leaned back slightly, a knowing look crossing his face. There it was, he said, the condescension, the assumption of moral superiority. If Joy wanted to talk about harmful representation, then they should talk about how she had spent years portraying liberal women as angry, bitter, and judgmental caricatures. The other hosts exchanged alarmed glances. This was no longer just a heated debate. It had entered dangerous territory. "How dare you?" Joy snapped, her voice rising enough to visibly unsettle the audience. She insisted she represented real women with real concerns about the country's direction. Women who didn't have the luxury of laughing while the world burned. Adam repeated her words thoughtfully, "Real women," and then asked when she had last truly listened to what real women actually wanted in his experience. Adam said most women, like most people, appreciated laughter. They enjoyed entertainment that didn't lecture them or shame them for having fun. Joy fired back that those women had been conditioned by a patriarchal society to accept inferior content, calling it internalized misogyny and accusing Adam of feeding them garbage. Adam shook his head slowly. He pointed out that Joy had just dismissed the opinions of millions of women simply because they didn't align with her worldview. She was effectively saying that women who enjoyed his movies were too stupid or brainwashed to know what was good for them. He asked how that attitude could possibly be empowering. Joy insisted she was advocating for content that challenged people intellectually instead of pandering. But her voice now carried a defensive edge. Adam pressed further, saying she wasn't advocating empowerment. She was claiming she knew better than everyone else what women should want, think, and enjoy. That wasn't feminism, he said. It was elitism disguised as activism. The studio fell completely silent. Even Joy Behar, known for her sharp tongue and dominance in confrontation, seemed momentarily shaken. Whoopi finally tried to steer the conversation back on track, suggesting they move on and discuss Adam's upcoming projects. But Joy refused, glaring briefly at her co-host before turning back to Adam. She demanded to know how the man behind Jack and Jill could possibly think he understood feminism better than a woman who had spent decades in the industry. Adam smiled, but this time, it wasn't warm or goofy. It was sharp, controlled, and deliberate. He admitted that Jack and Jill wasn't his best work. It was silly, exaggerated, and exactly what audiences expected from him. But, he said calmly, it wasn't mean-spirited. Adam leaned forward slightly, his voice steady but firm, as he pointed out that his film never mocked people for their appearance, beliefs, or backgrounds. It didn't punch down at anyone. Joy immediately snapped back, dismissing the argument by reducing the movie to 2 hours of a man in drag making offensive jokes. Adam didn't raise his voice. Instead, he calmly noted that while his movie was clearly labeled as comedy, Joy had spent the last 20 minutes making offensive remarks about his career, his character, and his fans while passing that behavior off as journalism. Joy's face flushed with anger. She bristled at the comparison, warning him not to equate Hollywood nonsense with legitimate political discourse. She claimed she was holding him accountable for his impact on society. Adam replied evenly that she wasn't holding him accountable at all, she was grandstanding. He accused her of using him as a prop in her ongoing performance as the moral authority of daytime television. She didn't actually care about his movies, he said. What she cared about was proving her intellectual superiority to the audience. Joy sputtered, insisting the accusation was ridiculous, but her usual composure was cracking. Adam pressed her directly, asking her to name specific scenes from his films that she found harmful. He challenged her to quote dialogue, to give concrete examples of how his work had damaged society. Joy opened her mouth, then closed it, visibly caught off guard. Adam pointed out the obvious: she couldn't, because she hadn't actually watched his movies. She was judging an idea of his work based on assumptions and online clips, not first-hand experience. Joy pushed back weakly, claiming she didn't need to watch every one of his films to understand their cultural impact. Adam responded that if someone was going to publicly attack another person's work on national television, intellectual honesty demanded exactly that. Otherwise, it wasn't criticism, it was character assassination. The dynamic in the studio shifted completely. Joy, who had begun the interview as the aggressive interrogator, now found herself on the defensive. Adam's voice grew quieter, but more intense. He told her the real issue wasn't his movies, it was his success. He was successful making content that didn't fit her narrow definition of worthwhile art. And that threatened her narrative that entertainment must be either politically correct or culturally irrelevant. Joy's hands trembled as she shot back that he wasted talent and opportunity, while real artists struggled. Adam shook his head sadly. There it was. He said the real Joy Behar worldview. Success without her approval was illegitimate. Joy without her permission was wasteful. She had appointed herself the gatekeeper of entertainment, tearing down anyone who succeeded outside her parameters. Joy's eyes flashed as the veneer of television professionalism she had maintained for decades visibly crumbled. "You think you're so clever," she snapped bitterly, accusing Adam of hiding behind a fake humble persona. She claimed to see through him, calling him a privileged white male who built a career on mediocrity, coasting on nepotism while women and people of color were shut out. The accusation hung in the air like poison. Even the other hosts looked stunned by how personal and ugly the attack had become. Adam's expression hardened completely. He warned Joy to be very careful with what she said next, pointing out that she was making false and potentially damaging accusations about his character and career. Joy sneered, seemingly pleased that she had made him uncomfortable, insisting he deserved it for attacking women who cared about making a difference. Adam corrected her calmly. He hadn't attacked her. He had responded to her attacks with facts and observations. Then he went further. If she wanted to make it personal, he said, they could talk about her career, about how she had built her brand on being the perpetually angry liberal woman who tore people down for failing to meet her impossible standards. Joy exploded, shouting that she had spent her life fighting for progressive values, women's rights, and social justice. What had he done, she demanded, besides make money from juvenile humor? Adam answered simply. He said he had made millions of people happy. He had given families something to enjoy together. He had provided work for hundreds of actors, writers, and crew members. He had donated quietly to charities without turning it into a publicity stunt. And most importantly, he had never used his platform to personally destroy people simply because they disagreed with him. Asterisk, you're destroying society with your mindless content. Joy shot back, her voice now shrill, almost desperate. Adam didn't flinch. Calmly, he told her the truth she couldn't stand to hear, that she wasn't defending society at all. She was destroying discourse with her toxic approach to disagreement. When challenged, she didn't engage intellectually. She escalated to personal attacks and unfounded accusations. And that, Adam said, was exactly why people were exhausted by this kind of politics. Joy abruptly stood up, the sudden movement startling the entire panel. She declared she didn't have to sit there and be lectured by someone who thought rejected Saturday Night Live sketches were high art. The studio fell into a stunned silence. "Nobody's making you stay," Adam replied quietly, but his words carried clearly across the room. When Joy demanded to know what he'd just said, Adam repeated it without raising his voice. She was choosing to be there. Just as she was choosing to behave this way, attacking him personally because she couldn't defend her position intellectually, that was the breaking point. Joy exploded, hurling insults and completely losing control. The audience gasped. Sunny Hostin covered her mouth in shock. Sarah N. looked like she wanted to disappear into her chair. Even Whoopi Goldberg, a veteran of countless heated moments, appeared stunned by Joy's full meltdown. When Joy shouted that Adam was disrespecting her in her house, Adam calmly corrected her. "This wasn't her house," he said. "It was a television studio. And respect wasn't demanded by position, it was earned through behavior." Joy screamed that she was done. Done with Adam. Done with the conversation. Done pretending people like him deserved a platform. Her hands shook as she fumbled with her microphone, struggling to remove it. Whoopi finally tried to intervene, urging a commercial break. But Joy snapped back that she wasn't cooling down, she was leaving. She refused, she said, to be insulted by a Hollywood hack. Adam watched quietly as she struggled with the mic. He said he'd never claimed to be better than anyone, but he also wouldn't sit there and be her punching bag while she worked through whatever personal issues were driving her hostility. Joy spun back toward him, the half-attached microphone screeching with feedback. She insisted this wasn't personal, it was about principles. About caring about more than box office receipts and celebrity status. Adam responded evenly that what she was actually reacting to was someone disagreeing with her, without having an emotional breakdown. And honestly, he added, it was sad to watch. That was the final straw. Joy ripped the microphone free and slammed it onto the table with a loud thud, pointing at Adam. She accused him of destroying what should have been a simple interview and bullying a woman on national television. Adam, still frustratingly calm, corrected her one last time. The only person bullying anyone here was her. She had started the attacks. And he had simply defended himself. Grabbing her notes, Joy stormed toward the exit, declaring she was done with the show and done with a network that gave people like Adam a platform. At the edge of the set, she turned back one final time, her face twisted with rage, accusing him of exploiting decent people while spreading toxic masculinity to their children. Adam shook his head sadly and said goodbye. He told her he hoped she found whatever she was really looking for because it clearly wasn't in that studio. With that, Joy Behar stormed off the set of The View, leaving behind a stunned audience, a shaken panel, and one of the most shocking meltdowns in daytime television history. The camera lingered on Adam Sandler, still seated, looking more disappointed than victorious. As the reality of what had just happened settled over the room, silence stretched unbroken only by the sound of Joy's heels clicking angrily down the hallway as she exited not just the interview, but seemingly the show itself. That was the moment Adam Sandler's quiet dignity and measured restraint dismantled Joy Behar's carefully constructed television persona, exposing the toxic behavior hidden behind years of moral grandstanding and political rhetoric. What do you think, was Adam right to stand his ground, or should he have handled it differently? Let me know in the comments below.